What's up everybody to the Sim channel. Welcome to the Sim channel is what I meant to say. After an hour of streaming to absolutely nobody, because apparently that streaming window on YouTube, if you push that window to the edge of your screen, um, it will hide the start live stream thing, and it will show on screen. It will look pretty much as usual during streaming. And I was wondering why you guys aren't very talkative today. So, I successfully tested much of the FanaLED software, Fanalab software without you. But I can give you a short recap. I feel slightly embarrassed. And I really hope you can see me now. Otherwise, it's really just YouTube's fault. This is like usability error, imperfect usability on YouTube's end, and then living in complete denial on my end. Like, okay, yeah, didn't realize there was a reason that you guys aren't actually responding to what I'm saying. Okay, so there we go. Anyway, we're live, an hour 12 late. But okay, since the title of the stream is the Fanalab, I mean, the name makes sense, right? Fanalab, because it's sort of a laboratory for your Fanatec wheel, but it's phonetically so close to FanaLED, which had much of the same functionality, or at least parts of it, before. It's so confusing. Sound and everything is fine. Thank you. Without asking, an hour ago, I asked twice about the same thing and nobody of you answered. Figure why. Anyway, so do a lap at Road America. I would like to see breaking points and stuff. I can do that. I'm not like super familiar with Road America. I mean, I know the track, but do I even have any Road America installed here? No, because I'm not sure if there's a good version out there for Assetto Corsa. Now, I can try and find Road America for like later. So, greetings from the Bermuda Islands. That's if you're actually on the Bermudas, shouldn't you have other things to worry about? Isn't there still like that hurricane sort of going on? Feels like maybe in some locations in the world right now, other things can be more important than SimRacing, but or maybe you meant something completely different and I'm not getting it, which is to be expected after an hour of streaming. Norman, so installing the important shaders and sol mods at some point. So I mean the shaders usually, I mean there's the shader patch and there's sol, right? Otherwise, all other shaders come with the tracks and cars that need them. So I can't really. I mean, it's just installing a track or car. I could do that at some point. I'm not sure. I mean, remind me again. Maybe at some point it's. I'm not sure I necessarily want to do that, because that would mean I would have to uninstall first the stuff and then install it just to make a video, and that's. I'm happy once my configuration runs, right? So I don't know, maybe at some point. Okay, but I feel like the installation for Sol isn't as complicated, and I think it's sort of documented on the Sol thing. Just I don't know. Maybe we can do it later on in the stream or something, and have another look at it, because I also need to update my Sol to the latest version. Anyway, since right now, it shouldn't be about Road America. It shouldn't be about how to install things and so of course we can do all of that a little later. For now, let's talk quickly about the Fanalab software. Let's see. Did you guys write anything else? Okay, I think that's the most important thing for now. So, since you weren't there to explore this software with me, let me quickly show you what it's all about. So we have this this main menu here, which, interesting. It shows the Club Sport V 2.5, which I think you can see on camera that it's not what I'm using. But I'm in a compatibility mode for the V 2.5, so that's why it shows it up here. So it's recognized as a V 2.5. That's fine, and I have the Xbox Universal Hub that's up here. I'm not using Fanatec pedals, I'm using Racing pedals. I think that's the right way to pronounce it. I did wrong in the past. I'm going to try and remember that to all Germans, the correct way to pronounce it, I think, is not Heusinkveld, like you would say in German. But imagine it being spelled with an Ö and then an I. So Heusinkveld. I think that's more like it. Anyway, back on topic, back to the Fanatec software here. So we're seeing the pedals grayed out, and it says Fanatec analog pedal for some reason. I don't know why, but there's no Fanatec pedals attached to my computer. The launch dashboard here is not yet available. We're gonna have to see what that will be exactly. No game running. This software will, I think you can launch the games from over here. I'm not exactly sure why you would want to do that from here. Maybe it's just something to make it easier for you. But as far as I'm concerned, so far I think that right-hand part here of the software, that you could just leave it out, because that's basically you already have your your Steam library or whatever else you're using to whoa, where did everything else go? Why did all my windows minimize when I just dragged the Steam over there? Now I'm completely confused. And also they sort of relocated on the various screens here. So where's the Fanalab? There we go. Okay. What was I saying? I'm not sure that this isn't just completely redundant. So that's the main menu. Then we have the tuning menu, which for now is exactly what we already had in the wheel. No more different effects, no more different settings, nothing. And you can select your 5 presets here, and that's about it. So the way I understood it was that those you would be able to say 5 presets per game, and so maybe after like starting up the game, if you then reset them, it will save it on a per game basis. But I'm not quite sure yet how it works. I feel like if they weren't being careful about it, this could be very confusing in the end. But so far it isn't to me, because I haven't discovered yet how I would have 5 settings per game and not just 5 settings in total. Also, where's the chat? I don't see what you guys are writing anymore. I don't know what my computer did just now when I dragged the Steam window over. So I think it also closed the chat window for me. Now let's see what you guys are saying. Wait, what? Okay, Road America for AC, Norman. Oh, can I make the chat windows? Well, that I need to do on OBS. I can, or I can. What's much easier than and it's gone. South Park, and it's gone. Okay. What I will do is just this window smaller, put it to a place where I can see it. Okay, is that better? I hope it's better. It's true that Content Manager doesn't install Sol, it installs the shader patch, and then I think you have to manually install Sol by copying folders to a certain place. Now the problem with my positioning of the window is that I can't really see past the steering wheel, and now my steering wheel is blocking my view of the window. Anyway, so as I said, these are the same settings as before. They should be on a per game basis, these 5 presets. I haven't really discovered how to get that started yet. So the one thing so far that is added, well, not the one thing, but the only force feedback relating thing that was added with the Fanalab software so far is the dynamic FFB here. And so it's a damping effect. So it will reduce any high peak torques, I guess. I'm not sure how to really describe damping right now, but it will help you get rid of the oscillations. And the oscillations are usually a problem on the straights. And this is a telemetry dependent, and in this case that means speed dependent measure. So the damper effect strength, well, that's just how much dampening you get. The effect range is, I'm not perfectly sure. I'm suspecting since it's sitting at 50 degrees, it means that only if the wheel is turned between either plus 50 or minus 50 or plus 25 and minus 25, that's the range in which the dampening will have an effect, and otherwise it will be switched off. And I'm assuming that there is not like a hard threshold, but it's more like an S-curve, something soft, so that the effect will slowly fade out as you move over the 50-degree angle. Otherwise, I'm not sure what else the 50 degrees would mean for the damper effect range. Anyway, there's a speed threshold, and that I think is pretty straightforward. The dampening effect will set in at a certain threshold. Then again, I assume, again, it's not a harsh threshold. Otherwise, if you're just around 90 kilometers an hour or whatever your threshold is set to, you would feel the FFB fidelity possibly jump back and forth between 2 different modes, which is very undesirable. So I'm assuming that it's also an S-curve, sort of soft threshold. And then it has also a dampening for going in reverse, I guess. I'm not sure. It says driving reverse. I don't do that a lot, and I don't really care about oscillations in that case. So, but it's probably helping with that. Turning the chat window off, you can see it, but people watching the stream later on might not be able to see it. So I prefer to keep it on screen. Let's see, is it taking anything away from you guys? I think right now you can see everything you need to see, and I don't know why it's that big block again, because it didn't used to be like that, and I didn't change anything about the settings. So here's my chat window settings. And there's this script that I got from somewhere, I don't know where. That should make the window see-through and just put your text on screen, whatever. Not sure what user-defined FPS means. Is that first-person shooter, or is it frames per second? 30 seems to indicate frames per second, but I don't know what sense that would make on a chat window. No idea. Anyway, the user-defined CSS should be working, but apparently it's not. I'm a little annoyed by that. I can't help it though. Anyway, for now, I kind of want to keep it on screen. But yeah, I realize that for when I run the game, it's not ideal, and I might turn it off. Okay, so that was dynamic damping. Then theoretically, we can have like different vibration effects if you are Fanatec users and you've tried FanaLEDs before. You may be familiar with the ability to map any number of functions on the vibration feedback in your steering wheel or in your brake or in your throttle pedal. However, currently I'm not using anything with a vibration motor, and I've never found the vibration motor to really add anything to my game playing. It feels quite artificial to me, and it's, yeah, you can use it as like a notification when you need to upshift and stuff like that, but then again, you can also use auditory and visual cues for that. So I'm not sure I'm going to use the vibration tab here a lot. Then we have the LED panel. This is interesting, not so much for me on the wheel that I have on here right now, because it's my Porsche wheel with the on the universal hub. Sorry, I was a little sick lately, so still got some leftover cuffs. You have this little LED panel that you can put upright into your wheelbase, or you can just hide it away. I always have it hidden away because I don't like how it sticks out. I don't think it looks good, and also the genuine Porsche Cup steering wheel, it doesn't have that panel, and I think it looks better without. I hope whatever it shows I can also see in game. Anyway, on the Formula Room V2, you have a nice little OLED display, and that will also basically have the same function as this LED display, except look a little prettier. And in this tab you can control what it'll show you. So by default, what you see on screen here is, and I realize that my camera window is sort of blocking the view of that window. So what you see on screen here is the default. So if you're a Fanatec user, you will know that usually it'll show your current speed in the display, and then whenever you shift, it'll show you new gear, and you can change that here. So for speed, you can either show that permanently or never. So 0 or X. 0 means permanently, X means never. Same goes with the RPM. So you could have like a rev meter, use it as a rev meter. You can have your fuel display, and the speed and rev meter are only on off, like always on or always off. The fuel liter thing here, here you can have it display only when it's changing, and then you can assign a priority to it. Same goes for the gear changes, and then ABS systems, DRS systems, and stuff like that. You can have them pop up on the display here whenever they matter, or whenever they're like activated or changed or whatever. Same goes for traction control. Lap number is something that you can also have permanently on the display, as well as your position in the race. And I guess your sector times, I suppose. This will be, yeah, it'll be sector times, I'm pretty sure. You can also put them on the display. So if you're running, for example, with a speed display already in game, and you don't want it on your steering wheel, and you'd rather have your sector times displayed, then yeah, you can do it now with this thing. So that's very nice. You can also see confirmation of your traction control settings and your ABS settings, for example, which I find is pretty great, because, for example, in ACC, when the way that I have my setup here with where the screen is and where my wheel is and where the little notification comes in whenever I change a setting, the steering wheel will block me from seeing that notification. So I'm sort of I'm in the dark when it comes to my ABS and TC settings in game quite often in ACC. So what I'm just quickly gonna do is I'm gonna want to see my sector times as a third priority. I don't need speed necessarily, because who cares how fast you're going on a racetrack? It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Gear changes, well, sometimes are nice. Let's see, anti-lock brakes. Can I have two things on the same? Yeah, I can, apparently. So I'm not sure how the order is going to, if I change TC and ABS at the same time, which of these it's going to display. My guess is that it will display the latest of these changes. Anyway, so now it should show me my gear, and then whenever I change TC or ABS, it'll show me the new setting for that. And so it'll show me the gear when I change the gear. Or do I want it there at all times and have the sector? I'm not sure how it would display the sector times at all on a 3-digit display. So maybe it's not sector times. Maybe it's just sector times. Maybe it just works on the newer OLED displays. I have no idea. So right now I'm going to set it up like this. Okay, Norman, if you're using an OSW wheel, I don't think that the Fanalab software will do anything for you at all. But I don't see what would keep you from continuing to use FanaLEDs, because FanaLEDs is not by Fanatec, it's a third party and has over time, I think, accumulated functionality for non-Fanatec wheels as well. And that's probably not going to change. But the Fanalab software by Fanatec, I'm pretty sure it's just going to work with Fanatec wheels. Okay, and then there is game profile, which I find a little, oh, I shouldn't pull it away from you, just so I can see better, so I can move around here. This might have to do with, so let's actually create a new profile. Let's call it Leon's AC profile. Save. Okay, now, okay, I can put it on default. So, all right, so now, let's say I want this setup. This is my regular setup, I guess, for ACC, but I can also use it in AC and it feels fine. I can now have this for a certain, like, car maybe. And then maybe there is another car where I want the same, but let's say less friction or even more friction. I don't know, whatever. Oh, it can only go 900 in AC. Okay. Okay, so now actually it's showing that it's just for AC. That's interesting. Okay. No, let's put it to 900 for AC. FEI 80. Okay, interesting. Now for some reason, oh, because oh, that's annoying. I'm now in V2.5 compatibility mode, which doesn't offer me with the natural damper, natural friction settings. So I should actually put it to DD1 or to the regular setting here, where I do have my properly set up damper and friction and don't have a drift mode and all that nonsense. Okay, and then I can put it back up to 1080 here, because the V2.5 apparently can only do 900 degrees. Okay, like so. And then let's do the same over here. Everything the same now, I guess. Yes. And now let's say just setting 2 would be the same, except 50 degrees, like 50% friction and 20% damping. So this is going to be like heavily dampened. Way too much probably. And let's go for a very light setting with just like 5% damping, 5% friction, 1080 degrees here, and something like 50%. Okay, so now I go to game profile and I want to save it. Overwrite, yes I do. And now let's go for a different game here. Let's call this Leon's ACC profile. And let's say that. Make it the default. Now my first question is, would that make, like, what happens if I then go to a set of course now? Okay, so it has, and I wrote that wrong now. Can I delete this or can I rename it? I hate spelling mistakes in stuff like this. Can I save it? Okay, I can delete it here with a trash can, of course. So, okay, do I still have the same settings as before? I do. Now let me go into the ACC profile, load that, go to the tuning menu, and even though it doesn't, these are the settings that I want to use. Let's say we reduce a couple of things. So take the slider down a notch here. That'll do. Save the profile, overwrite it. And now when I want to drive AC, I'm going to load AC, and then within that profile, I have my 5 settings here that I can also switch through on the fly with the buttons on the steering wheel. And we should see that I feel like I had it on 90% here, 90% force for the AC profile. So save that again at 90% force. Tuning menu, 90%. Okay, let's load the ACC profile. Tuning menu, 75%. Let's put that back to 70. Save it. And now let's go AC profile, load, and we're back at 90. So this is how I expected it to work. So now we have basically not really 5 settings per game, but 5 settings per each loaded profile. So we can have multiple profiles per game. So we can have any number of different settings that we might want. We might even have, like, we can do 1 setting per car if we want, and then we can have like a road car profile with settings for 5 different road cars, and then we can have like a formula or open wheeler profile for 5 different open wheelers in the game, and so on. And then we can have any number of precisely fine-tuned force feedback effects. That being said, right now I don't think it makes that much sense to have multiple profiles per game, because there isn't all that much to set up. And I mean, outside of the strength, and the only things I set up is the strength, the natural damper and friction, and the FEI setting. Okay, so okay, so Norman, you're saying you use Fanatec rims on an OSW base. In that case, that's a good question whether or not that will work. Maybe, but I feel like you probably need a Fanatec wheelbase attached, but I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't know, and I have no way to test it. But I mean, you have a way to test it, right? You could test it and tell us. But also feel free to stay in the chat and in the stream. So, okay. Anyway, so I set a course to 90 here, 80 here. That's all fine. So setting 1 in Assetto Corsa is good. Diabolus says no, it won't work, and that's what I thought. So, yeah. So that's what I thought. Okay. So for ACC, let's quickly save that profile, AC, I'm sorry. And then for ACC, just to make sure I'm not gonna feel completely weird about force feedback next time I launch it. Let's put it back to reasonable values. Okay, and save it. Right, good. Now the damper effect, I wonder, okay, that this seems to be independent of the tuning menu of the 5 settings here, because it doesn't have a selection for any of the 5, and otherwise I think it would be located within here. Now if you have like a per car setting for that, it would actually, in my opinion, would make sense to make this part of the tuning menu. However, I feel like maybe a reason why they didn't do it is that the tuning menu is sort of an exact replica of the menu that you have, that you can see on your steering wheel or on your wheelbase. So they probably didn't want to make like huge upgrades to each of the different firmwares for the different steering wheel bases that are supported by the software, just in order to make it more convenient. I mean, in the long run, maybe it might make sense to do that, but then there's also like limited space, and if you bring more and more options in, you can't really display all of those options properly on like a 3-digit display like in here, which is what many users of non-direct drive Fanatec bases have as their only display for any setup while in game. So I think it's probably going to stay like this for at least a while, where we have 5 settings per profile, and we can load the different profiles, and we're only going to have 1 dynamic force feedback settings with a dynamic dampening available per profile. I think I don't have an opinion yet on the force feedback. SimRacing. Okay, sorry, where are you from, my biggest fan? If that was directed at me, SK Amel. Is that Dutch? But if directed at me, thank you very much. I like having big fans. Also on my computer. Good. So I guess then we went through the LED, we went through vibration, we went through game profile. Hello, Sebastian. Hello to the Netherlands. I'm not too far away from the Netherlands here. It's actually like 45 minutes to the border. Anyway, you're in luck. You can watch Maxime MXM's stuff then and understand it, and I can't because I don't speak Dutch. I can say 999. To a German, that's a really funny word. It's 999 to the non-Dutch speaking audience. And I probably have like a thick German accent or whatever, but it's still a funny word. What I was doing before you people were watching me, because you didn't care, or maybe I had it set up the wrong way, I was testing the dynamic FFB, and I was trying to see, first of all, if it works. And yes, it does work. It does. It doesn't do completely away with all of your oscillations that you might find on a straight, but it does notably help. Of course, it helps more with higher damper effect strength. So my next question, which I haven't investigated yet, which I was just about to investigate, is how much you can feel during cornering and of this dampening effect during cornering and during times where you would actually not want any fidelity taken away from the wheel, and whether or not it really makes a difference. So in order to test that, the logical thing would be to test it at 0 or 1, because it doesn't have a 0 setting for some reason. So if I slide it all the way to the left, it'll be at 1. And so make a test at 1 and then make another test at 100. It doesn't jump there immediately. I have to grab it and slide it over. Okay, so test it at 1, drive a couple laps, get accustomed to the effect, strength, or to just the fidelity of the force feedback, then change it to 100 and see if it's if I can feel a different outside of reduced oscillations. So that's going to be my my goal for for the next I don't know, 10-15 minutes or so. What's up, C Curse Verse, CRS VRS? Good to have you on the stream. Phoenix says there will be future updates for the dynamic FFB, and I'm now reading off the chat. Counter steer effect, front suspension effect, dynamic force enhancement. I'm curious what all of those will do. Honestly, I didn't have any issues so far with, not even with oscillations on the straight, not even at very high force feedback settings. But that may also be because I personally like to run very high friction settings. So I like my friction between 20 and 30% usually for most cars. And that is that in a real car steering rack, there is friction. Even if you have your car on a, like in a shop and it's lifted up and the tires aren't touching the ground, you will still, you can't rotate the wheel like, hang on, you won't be able to rotate your car's wheel even when racked up like so. That's not gonna happen because there's friction in the system. And for example, Assetto Corsa, it takes the force feedback or basically the force feedback numbers, it calculates them directly at the wheels. So whatever forces are acting on the wheels will be directly transmitted to your steering wheel's force feedback, which is not perfectly realistic because it does not simulate at all the steering rack. And the steering rack will introduce some friction. It's of course different on a per car basis, so each car has a little bit of a different friction. And then there's different power steering systems that will sort of do away with the friction again to some degree. Anyway, I like a hefty amount of friction in the wheel because, sorry, to me, makes it feel more realistic. So I go high friction values so I don't have a lot of issues with oscillations on straights. So for me, the dynamic damping is not really important. I didn't miss it before, but still nice to have for everybody who likes to go with lower friction values. And maybe at some point I will also convert to lower friction values. Again, I don't know. And at that point, I might benefit from this setting a lot. Right. Shrifty, I can talk about SimRacing Expo all night long if you want. Feel free to ask anything as soon as I run out of things that I have to get off my chest, because I just spent an hour and 12 minutes exploring all of this, and you guys weren't listening. So, but I'm pretty much at the point now where I've caught up with where I was previously, and now I'm ready to get back into the game and actually try out the fidelity thing with the dynamic FFB. And after that's done, I think I've explored everything there is to explore about the software itself as it is here right now. And after that, I have all night to to tell you crazy things from the expo, which was completely mind-blowing weekend, completely awesome. Anyway, oh, one more thing about the software. So it runs in the background, so you just leave it open. You start up your game. You don't have to start it from the software. You can start it from Steam or from CM Content Manager or whatever launcher you want for your game. You can use it. It'll be fine. I think these cards here to start up your game are redundant in the end. So personally, I would throw them out, but they wanted to have some nice all-in-one solution to start your game. Whatever, I don't care. Let's pull up the tuning menu here, and let's jump into the game in the Porsche GT3 Cup car, which was actually present in person at the SimRacing Expo with a built-in simulator, and I can talk about that in a second. Okay, Swifty, you will now be called Mia. Am I missing something? Okay, so Norman says that Fanatec makes the best wheel rims at a really reasonable price point. Compared to more expensive offerings on the market or the typical OSW offerings, I tend to agree that the Fanatec wheels are often at a sweet spot in terms of price, in terms of the value proposition. However, not all of them are. I wouldn't recommend all of them. Probably. I'm not sure. Maybe yeah. There aren't any black sheep in there, but I feel like the game is too loud. I can't really talk. Okay. Could also just jump back to here and just decrease my overall volume like so. Okay. Well, to be honest though, the really expensive steering wheels, they tend to be really amazing as well, and it's a bit like you get what you pay for. So Fanatec has very nice wheels, I agree, and one that I've had in my hands for the first time at the Expo, for example, was the esports Formula rim, which at $250 I think is a great wheel. I'd say it's every bit as sturdy as the Formula Rim V2. It doesn't have the carbon front plate, but the aluminum one is just as sturdy. That thing doesn't flex or anything, right? It has a few buttons. It misses a few buttons that the Formula Rim V2 has, but then again, it also misses the buttons that I don't like, or these weird thumb wheels which rotate way too easily. If you've seen my review of the Fanatec Formula Rim V2. And I'm sort of like a perfectionist, and I hate it when there's something that I really can't stand about a wheel. So that's like sort of a negative point. So I would prefer the wheel to not have those thumb rotaries at all, the Formula Rim V2, over having them and not being really good. So that's like a flaw, and I don't like flawed things that much. It's not about human beings. I like flawed human beings sometimes, most of the time, I guess. But steering wheels, I'd rather have them reduced in functionality than have them full of functionality and some of that not really working well. Anyway, that wheel is a pretty nice wheel. I did have the, so guys and girls probably know, or you may know, that what's in my hand here is not the Fanatec replica, but it's the genuine Porsche steering wheel, right? And so this cost me 350 euros. I don't know what the Fanatec one will cost. The replica certainly will be cheaper, as Thomas said in the interview. I would suspect it to be priced with the other standalone rims that you can buy at Fanatec. Maybe it's a bit higher, maybe like 30 bucks more or something. And in comparison to the one in my hand, I want to say it may be a little lighter. It has the better looking Porsche logo on the front with a little bit of a structure to it and more shiny and all that. Whereas here I just have a 3D domed sticker. But of course the replica isn't as good as the original. The rim is made of some sort of plastic, and you can, when you squeeze it, it'll flex ever so slightly. You'll notice it when you squeeze it. I think you won't notice it while driving. So for a sim wheel, it's fine. It just doesn't give you the same kind of rugged, sturdy, professional race car feel as the original one will. Then again, I paid 350 for just the wheel rim, and then another 350 for the universal hub. So I'm holding 700 euros in my hands, and that is without the wheelbase, right? So it's expensive stuff, but yeah, you get what you pay for. So probably if the Fanatec replica had been available at the time when I got this, I would have gotten the Fanatec one for what I assume. What are those wheels? I can't check the website right now, but what are the how much do you pay for a Fanatec wheel rim usually? Is it like 150 bucks or something? Between 150 and 200, I would say. It's probably reasonable. So in that price range, I would say it's a fair deal for the Porsche rims. And then I might even prefer the smooth leather one over the Alcantara one, which is not really a replica of any real life wheel, because the wheel in my hands, it only exists in the Alcantara version with a red center strip, with a yellow center strip. And now Fanatec's also providing a red center strip version with smooth leather on, which doesn't exist in the real racing world. But I mean, smooth leather doesn't wear as much as Alcantara, so I can see why they made that as an option, and it's a good thing to have, and it's a good wheel, pretty sure. I mean, I've tried it when I drove it. Honestly, I'm using gloves anyway. Hardly any different from what I have in my hands here while driving, as long as you don't look too closely. But if you do, there will be a difference, right? So yeah, as I said, you get what you pay for. And now, of course, I realize that this is a bad track to read the chat because it's only turns. I wish there was like a way to have like a voice chat here. That would be nice if I could hear you guys. Only one at a time though. Trying to read while driving and while also listening with my hands for the fidelity of the force feedback while I have the dynamic damping turned off so that I can turn it back on in a bit. Now out to the only real two straights on the circuit. Okay, something was fixed and is fine now. Can you do the gangster lean on the rim quick release? Sebastian, I don't know what the gangster lean is. Yeah. Do I have a media background? No, I don't. And I actually thought that some of my interviews were a bit terrible. I never know where to look, and also I have a very unusual setup with a very wide-angle lens for an interview, so it would be much easier with two cameras, or if I was like standing opposite of the people that I'm interviewing. No, but I don't have any media background. I also don't. I didn't like my own performance too much in the interviews, but I've actually been complimented on it before, and I don't get it. I'm trying to improve for like next time, whenever the next time is that I'm interviewing someone. Okay, yeah, maybe for the next stream. But if it, like so Sebastian, if the if it has anything to do with with like stressing the quick release and trying to show flex or something, nah, I don't want to overdo it with trying to flex that thing. I do have to say though, I mean, everybody's now talking about the flex and the quick release, right? And I mean, Barry is usually, I mean, I liked his suggestion. I would also like to see a different quick release system on these wheels, since I don't necessarily think it's such a big deal to have like a spiral cord dangling about when it's close to the rim. I think a regular Simicube style quick release or mounting solution for wheels would work for me as well on a Fanatec wheel rim. But I think it's fairly obvious that for strategic reasons they're not going to do that, which is perfectly understandable, even though I personally would like that. So I don't think that that particular idea, charming as it may be, will be set into practice. And one thing that Barry was sort of, where didn't quite understand where it was coming from, even though he repeated a couple of times in the video, I don't think the flex in the quick release takes anything away from your force feedback fidelity, because it's in a direction orthogonal to the rotation of the steering wheel. And there is absolutely no flex around the rotational axis, so I'm not sure how something orthogonal would have an impact on the fidelity of the steering wheel force feedback. Right. But yeah, of course it would be nicer without the flex. So let's see. Did I try any of the motion rigs? Yes, I did. Like about 7 or 8. I think that's the only thing I tried. The whole thing was motion rigs. And then I made these interviews and I talked to people and I watched the real world races and went on lap of the Nordschleife as a passenger. But in terms of really testing hardware, I almost only tested motion rigs. Okay, I'll catch up with the chat on the next straight again, hopefully. Let's see. By the way, isn't the game like crazy silent for you guys since I reduced the volume in game? I'm just realizing that I should have just reduced the my overall headphone output, because I'm hearing nothing but the game anyway. So I could have let it louder for you guys. So just please tell me if it's too silent. I'll make it a little more put a little more volume into it. Quickly catching up on the chat. No, this is not a sponsored DD wheel. This one I bought myself. I did get the entry price of $9.99, and I did get the €350 voucher because I pre-ordered it and it was delayed again. So in total I paid only like €650 if you want to calculate it like that. But it's not at all sponsored. So far I haven't gotten anything from Fanatec in terms of hardware. I might get something in the future though. I'm hopeful. So we'll see about that. Yes, Norman, I did see Barry's video on the fix for the flex. Yeah, it might do a good job. It looked like it does a good job. I don't think it was particularly pretty in blue. I'd rather have it in black, I guess. But yeah, but I mean, honestly, yeah, there's a bit of flex, especially in the here in the quick release of the Xbox Universal Hub. Yeah, but just in this direction, not at all in the steering direction. And while I drive, I don't feel that flex at all. I would prefer not to have it, but it's not something that necessarily needs to be fixed. And one thing that I'm a little bit concerned with is I'm not sure what exactly. So there's this rubber ring that they have only in the DD1 quick release, right? And you have that nut that you thread on it, and that you just push on the rubber ring, and that will then expand outward from the shaft and will make a more snug fit of the quick release on the shaft. With that gone, maybe that 3D printed piece does the same thing as well, but I'm not sure. I would be a little cautious until I hear like more words on if that might at all affect reliability or possibly a warranty. Even though, yeah, it might be hard to prove that you use such a thing if something breaks, but because you can build it back, there's no seals or anything. But still, with that kind of thing, fixing something that doesn't necessarily need to be fixed for my unit, I'm a little cautious, and I'm gonna wait this out a little and see what the community will, how the community will evaluate that piece in the long run. Oh, you're not hearing the game at all, so that's good to know. Diabolus, no, dynamic FFB is not active in ACC, and it's not active in Kartcraft, unfortunately. That's true. It's also, so when you're in game, you can just go back into the software. It's running in the background, and you can I think I can reduce the force feedback slider here, and then go back into game, and it'll be reduced immediately. So it immediately applies any changes from the software to the steering wheel, just as if you were dialing it in with the buttons in the steering wheel. And so I can also could right now go ahead and change this setting. But if I were in ACC and I would go here, I think it would all be grayed out. So that's how you can check whether or not it's available. And in ACC and in Kartcraft, it is not. So yeah, there's that. Oh, I intentionally didn't turn it on for, why am I in the ACC profile? What the hell? AC profile. I want it off for now. And I'm gonna drive like one more lap with it off, and then I'm gonna turn it on and see if if I can feel a difference in the fidelity of the force feedback. So yeah, I saw it. Okay, anyway, let's keep on driving. Oh, and let's stop the car and get you guys some sound. I hope you can hear the game now, and I will quickly reduce the volume on my headphones even further so that I will hear less of the game. Okay, here we go. Didn't the numbers used to turn red when I need to shift up? It sometimes does, sometimes doesn't. Okay, am I still at like, okay, I can go, no, let's stay at 130% here, 90% in the wheel. So so the forces are fairly high, I guess. So this was 50. I should do one more thing and put the force feedback to 100% because we're not children anymore. We can handle it. Okay, so this is the setting that I, in the part of the stream that you guys didn't see, this is the setting that I set up there to reach about 20 Newton meters between like turn 2 and 5 somewhere. So that I will feel the maximum fidelity of the steering wheel, maximum force, and then be able to compare perfectly when I dial the dynamic dampening to 100%. Okay, a couple more corners and then I'm going to turn it up to 100. Let's see if I can spot the difference. Okay. Wait, you have no sound? You still have no sound from the game? I'm trying to figure out what I can do to give you sound, because that's really bad if you have no sound. Still none, huh? Yeah, I will talk about I'll talk about the motion rigs in a bit. Oh, hey, Leonard. Okay, is any of you people an OBS crack and knows what could be going wrong here? Oh. Oh. Yeah, putting the desktop audio slider to 0 might be what takes your sound away. How about now? Does that sound okay? Is it too loud though? Tell me, please. Okay, too loud. In that case, 5 decibels off. So, tell me again, how do you like the volume? Sorry, it's texting and driving is difficult, so that's why I'm addressing it. Okay, I'll take that thumbs up as a sound is alright now. And don't pause the game in a turn. Now, come on, where is it? It's not reacting to the keyboard, now it is. And now let me turn up the dynamic force feedback effect all the way. We're going all the way today, guys and girls. Okay. Let's see. So it should kick in at like above 90. Whoa. What's going on? Cold tires. So, I feel like I can feel a little bit of a difference. I feel like it's... Yeah, I mean, basically what you would expect if you turn up dampening, just the regular dampening, once you are above a certain speed. So, the force feedback doesn't feel quite as sharp as it used to. Let's check Newton meter figures, because that usually would also go down with the when you increase the damping, the total force might go down a little. In this case, it doesn't. So the constant torque in the corners is still the same. I feel like maybe the fidelity is ever so slightly decreased. I mean, it does feel softer going over the curves and bumps. Not by much, but I think I'm feeling the difference here. I'm using a straight now to set it back down to nothing and then jump back and forth a little bit. But it's like almost perceptually, it's almost in the range where it might still be placebo. Just knowing I should expect something a little more down. I mean, it's really hard to drive like. I mean, if you drive over a curb 5 laps in a row, it'll feel just ever slightly different each time you go, right? So. Either way, it won't, like, it's not a big difference in the force feedback feel. But I do feel like it's a little more dampened with the damping. Perfectly logical, right? Okay. So, yeah. I would have to go back and forth over and over to really make sure that it's an actual change that I'm feeling in the fidelity of the force feedback. But overall, it's not a big deal. Yeah. Or one thing that could be is, does that affect the natural damper in any way? So if I put this up to like 50%, so that's a huge value, will that is that the same damper that is affected by this one? Because otherwise the difference between 0 and 5% dampening, that might not be as much, but if it's between 0 and 50%, it might as well be a whole freaking lot. So let's do that as the last test, just to make sure I'm getting it right. So I turn the dynamic force feedback completely off. Dampening seems to be some constant dampening. Doesn't feel super dampened now. The dynamic one off and the normal one set to something else. Let me dial it back in. 100%. It does feel more dampened now. Let's put the damper to 100%. So this is the maximum damper I could ever get here. But again, I mean, the dynamic damping is also designed to also only work like in a 50-degree range, possibly between 20 and 25 degrees of steering angle. So it'll really just be active on the straights. So right now everything feels a little over damped. Of alternate. Another thing back down. But I feel like it should be separate. Two separate effects. The question is now, do I still feel a difference in this setting and dynamic damping reduced to nothing? I'm pretty sure that the answer is yes. Restart. Let's go, dynamic damping. 0. Let's go. test it properly, I should probably also like put FEI on 100 and reduce friction to nothing. And now it should be like the highest fidelity force feedback possible. More off the curves. You guys have become really silent. Are you still with me? Ooh. Is my live stream still going? Yes, it's still going. Good. Oh, but the guys, sorry, guys and girls, the live chat only just updated with like a whole page of new things that I'm now trying to go through. Okay, apparently you still can't really hear me. That's yeah. So. Apparently YouTube isn't always completely the way it should be. Okay. So okay, so the talk is now about different full motion solutions. Okay. My last test, and I hope that the game will now be silent enough for you guys to hear me again. What I'm gonna do now is put the natural damper on 100, but leave the dynamic one on 0, just to check if the dynamic one is actually manipulating the dynamic damper, the natural damper, or if it's a damper on top of that. So let's see. Oh, it's pretty sure it's on top of it. Otherwise, it would be pretty confusing. Wait, just go a little bit and see how easy it is to turn the wheel now. Actually, okay, this and then, well, yeah. No, okay, I think it's fairly conclusive that these effects are separate. Okay, and that would conclude the Fanalab testing part of this stream, I suppose, unless you have anything that you want me to experiment with. So, just gonna quickly reset it to the settings that I like, and save it. Okay, good. Since we're talking full motion rigs, first of all, let's quickly go through different kinds of motion rigs there are. So first differentiation you can make is between what you're actually moving. So are you moving the seat? Are you moving the seat and the rig? Or are you moving the seat and the rig and the screens in front of you? Of course, with VR, the latter option is not in question. And one thing that should be noted is the more weight you're moving, the more difficult it becomes for the actuators, and the more power, the more expensive, the more powerful actuators you need to get the job done. One thing you can do is put everything on bearings. There was one sim race, like one huge cage motion setup where all the everything was put on bearings, so that you had a bearing that would carry all the weight load, and then the actuators would only rotate it around the pivot point, for example, which allows them to take smaller actuators and still get the same fidelity. So it allows to cut the price or get higher fidelity at the same price if you put it on bearings. But then again, the bearings solution itself, it's price intensive, right? So you might just have a solution just as good in the end, but there are different ways to approach these things. Anyway, there was, I think, there were some that were where the most of the rig was put on some bearing, where the actuators would then only like rotate it around and so on. And there were some where the whole rig was actually sitting on the actuators, which would then have to do the lifting for both the rig and the seat and the driver, and just keep the whole thing at a certain level so that it can still dip down, if that makes sense. Which is the standard way. That's the D-Box systems that do it that way. That's the SimRig systems, which is a D-Box alternative at 2,900 euros, which I would recommend to anybody looking into getting that kind of stuff, because it's very similar to the D-Box system at a fraction of the cost. So, and also the guys are really nice. They're from Sweden. I like Swedish people, I guess. But it's an interesting system. How else can you differentiate them? So the D-Box system is, and the SimRig system by extension is as well, it's usually a 4 actuator system. You can go 2 or 3 as well, but like standard configuration would be 4 actuators at each corner of your chassis, and then it can lift up and down each of the corners. That means you can get 3 degrees of freedom. That is pitch, so pitch, roll, and heave, which is just up, down. What it can't do, and many people like, is yaw, so kick the rear out. These systems, the 3 degrees of freedom systems without yaw but with heave, they can already do a fairly good job. I don't know how important heave is, even though I've tried it in a couple of simulators, but I didn't really notice it much. And it's just incredibly difficult to get into a motion rig and feel comfortable with it right off the bat, because everything is set up so differently from the other rigs, and there are so many ways apparently to set these things up, that what you're actually testing on an expo is not the capability of the hardware, but how it's set up. To like 90% is setup and 10% is capability of the hardware. They had like a huge thing that was like on a circular thing. It was Evo Motorsports. They had like a, it was like, imagine a footprint, a circular footprint with a 2 meter 50 diameter. And then it raises like 6 or 8 arms or actuator arms in the air, and it lifts the whole rig, which is centered above the circle, and your butt will be at a height of 1 meter, or not, yeah, like on the height that usually you would have your stomach. So I'm not sitting in that rig. I wasn't sitting as low as I'm here, but I was lifted up at least 0.5 meter. so it has a huge range to go up and down and to dip and roll and even yaw, I think. I'm not sure if it yaws. Anyway, it can do a lot of things with a huge range. But it was set up very moderately to do very little. Especially, I was missing a little bit of brake feel because it wasn't really dipping in under braking. So I struggled with it very much. Also, it was sporting iRacing and a car apparently that I wasn't really very comfortable with, and I had it was difficult for me to just get a clean lap in with that. And then you have to get out before you've got your first clean minute of driving, and it's really hard to say anything about it just from 5 minutes in a rig that you are only just starting to get adjusted to. It was similar for many of the rigs actually. So you get in, you get your 5 minutes, you get out again, and then people want to know how you feel about it, and of course they want to hear that it's the greatest thing ever, and you're inclined to tell them, but I brought up at least enough honesty to tell them when I didn't feel comfortable with the car. That being said, I also added that, okay, it can be the sim, it can be the setup, it can be the setup of the motion thing. So bottom line is it's really hard to compare these systems on an expo like that when you get like 5 or even 10 minutes per rig. What you would need is half a day per rig, set it up exactly to your liking, then compare it to the others, to the next one. And then over time, find out which is the right one for you. Of course, you'll never find all of those different solutions in one place, at least. I wouldn't know of any place outside of the expo, and then at the expo you don't have enough time. So it's a really difficult thing. What I can say, I didn't benefit much from any of the yaw movement in the rigs, even though some people say it's the most important thing to have, the yaw, because it makes you feel when the rear kicks out. But usually I get that well over the wheel, from the wheel, that info. So I don't necessarily need it from the rig. And also I didn't really feel it in the rigs that I was in. Maybe the cars usually have like traction control on. And I usually wouldn't, I would try to drive them clean, right? And I didn't try to make the rear kick out. And then what happens mostly is the rear doesn't kick out and there's not a lot of yaw movement. So it might be something completely different for a rally simulation, for example. The guy who makes the Evo Motorsports rig, he's a former or still current, he's a rally driver anyway. And of course in a rally setup you need way more motion in all direction, and maybe there it can be extremely beneficial. For my typical street course racing in race cars and road cars, to me yaw didn't make that much of a difference. So I was having trouble getting adjusted to many rigs, some more, some less, also depending on the software. When it was Assetto Corsa, as you know, I drive a lot of Assetto Corsa, so I tend to be more familiar with how it feels, how to operate it. And for example, in one of the rigs, which was also an expensive and fairly sophisticated one, I think it had 8 actuators, and it was sitting with in the Nissan shop at the ring, so not on the expo itself, but 30 meters away in the Nissan shop. I had like 8 actuators. It did yaw, it did everything. So it was actually, it had a sort of a seat mover on top of a whole huge rig that was moving. That's how you get to 8 actuators. And I felt comfortable right off the bat with that, because I suppose it was set up close to how I would set it up as well. The braking was fine, so I could judge how hard I was braking from the movement of the rig. Could judge my grip levels from how everything moved. And I did a lap of the Nordschleife, which I don't know all that well, but I did a whole lap that wasn't completely slow. with only one mistake. One time I went on the grass. So that was a good sign for me, but it was a good sign that the rig was well set up. It wasn't necessarily a sign that you need all of the very expensive hardware, because that was like a 50,000 euro rig, right? Motion rig. Wasn't necessarily a good sign that the hardware was well set up. Is great, but that it was well set up. That's what it showed to me. And then I guess if you get into motion systems and you have a lot of money to spend on these, maybe the best idea is to start little. You start with like a 4 actuator system maybe, or with like a GS5 seat or something, which again is a completely different thing, and there wasn't any of those to try, so I have no idea how they feel. But maybe it makes sense to start a little and then try and see how you can improve your motion rig over time. Then again, for private use, I think most of us, even if we could, wouldn't want to spend 50,000 euros on a motion rig, right? At least I think that kind of money, like once I have my first million, right, then I can think about a 50,000 euro rig, but not before. Anything before that, I would feel like, okay, it's just too much. So my personal favorite of all of the Expo, the Nissan one was my number 2. My personal favorite was the Porsche GT3 Cup car with a built-in motion simulator. So what they did is they took the Porsche GT3 Cup car that you see in the Porsche Cup right off the factory, and they put a D-box system under the seat. So it was a 4 actuator D-box system right under the seat. Didn't move much, but it was quick and precise, and it moved enough so that you would be pressed into your racing harness. So you drive it with a harness on, which is, in my opinion, very important. Not for immersion as much, not for safety reasons, obviously, because the car is standing still, but just because the seat will pitch forward, but the harness will stay in place, and you will be pressed into the seat. And that kind of resembles the feel of heavy braking. And it's helpful to judge how much brake pressure you're applying. And so that was very nice. Also, it did help a lot with the immersion to have this brake feel. It was great. Like that probably is the single most important effect, in my opinion, to have your harness pull on you and to have maybe your seat push you into the harness, or if you have one of those seatbelt fasteners, maybe just pull on the harness to strap you into the seat harder under braking. But I haven't tried any of those systems, so I can't really say. Anyway, the system in the Porsche with the 4 actuators under the seat, that was perfect to me. That was all I need. And it was just, so I felt, in that car, I have to say, it had the same steering wheel as I have, a little more worn down, but okay, of course. It's been used more than mine. In the real car that it belongs to, with a direct drive wheelbase, I don't know which it was. It was inside the dashboard and I couldn't see it. I didn't ask, don't think I asked about it. It was well set up. It felt like driving a real car. Even though I don't know how that actual car feels on track, but it felt very believable. And then the pedals, I believe, were the original pedals of the car. I mean, it was the original pedals, but I think they didn't disassemble the whole thing. So I think they measured the brake pressure somewhere near the brake disc. So it felt to me, I may be wrong, didn't ask about the specifics, but it felt to me like I was actually pressing the brake calipers on the brake discs on the actual car, and also the brake lights of the car would go on when you push the brake pedal on that car. And then the clutch, it felt like I was actually pushing that Porsche 911 race clutch. It felt completely like a clutch feels in a car. So if it wasn't the real clutch, then it was like the best clutch mechanism on a pedal ever. But I think it was the real clutch. And then they had some sensors that would measure whether or not it was pressed electronically to give that information to the game. So just to give you an idea of what it means when I feel comfortable in a car, it was R Factor 2 in the new Porsche 911 Cup car. So the same car that I was sitting in is now coming to RF2. As I learned since, it's not out yet for RF2, so I'm waiting for that to happen, to come out. Because the car in RF2, the 911 Cup, felt genuinely great and believable. And it's basically my favorite race car at this moment anyway, so I can't wait for it to come out and try what kind of lap time I could set with it in my home rig. Anyway, I was told the fast lap times of people who really know what they're doing were around 2 minutes dead on the Nürburgring GP with that car. I had 3 flying laps, so I had 1 out lap and then 3 flying laps, which is way too little to get anywhere near the limit if you have to get adjusted to the wheel, to the pedals, to the motion, to the simulation, right? I hardly ever use RF2. I've never been in that car before in RF2 because it's not released. Everything is completely new in that car, except the physical steering wheel, which is the same here. Everything else completely new. Each motion rig is completely different. It was the only one that I tried that had only sort of a seat mover, 3 degrees of freedom seat mover. And I posted a 2 minutes 1.5. I was told that was the second fastest lap time on the whole weekend of all the guests who had a go in it. So there was one who posted a 2 minutes dead, but he I think drove more than once. And yeah, still, at the simulator I met Kelvin van der Linde, who drives the McLaren GT series. I did an interview with him also that will come out on Monday in the evening. I think you can already see the preview for it because of how the premiere feature works on YouTube now. Or how, well, it never worked any differently, but it's how it works. So you can already see the preview. Anyway, so I did the interview with him and I also filmed his lap, and he did a 2 minutes 3.5. He put it in the kitty litter for a little bit, so it wasn't a good lap at all. But still, so I beat his time by 2 seconds. And I beat almost everybody else who had tried the rig, which made me incredibly proud to have beaten a real racing driver by 2 seconds, and also to have beaten almost everybody else in the rig with just 3 flying laps, even though everybody else only had 3, 2, or in case of Kelvin, only 1 flying lap. But that felt completely natural to me, just like getting into a car. If you get into a real car and it's not super weird, you can immediately drive it like a normal car. Like you don't need a empty parking lot to practice with it for half an hour before you can finally take it to the road, right? You get into a friend's car and you drive it. And it was the same thing for me with the simulator. I would have needed probably like 3 to 5 more laps to get to my fastest lap, but I didn't have like a single mistake, so I never really went on the grass anywhere majorly. I was just able to just go out on the track, do my laps like you would expect to do in a real race car, where you stay away from walls, you stay away from the grass, and you just drive it, and I was able to push the car, and everything felt natural. And that was the best experience on the SimRacing Expo. That was really brilliant. Totally believable, everything great. And it was the motion rig that has the least motion of of all the ones that I've tried, because it was only the seat moving. It was only pitching a little so that you could feel it in the harness, rolling a little, and maybe heaving a little, but I'm not even sure of that. So it was just like giving you some nice sensations, and you will be able to see a little bit of it in Monday's video. I'm putting Kelvin's lab at the end of the interview, and if you have a look at the seat in the bottom right frame, so just make a note until Monday. In the bottom right frame of the picture, you will see the seat inside the car. So I was filming from outside the car, but you can see the seat inside the car moving just a little, and you get an impression of how much it was moving or how little it was moving. So it wasn't a lot. Well, it was, for me, that was everything I need. And also that's what, spoiler alert, what Kelvin also said, that usually he doesn't like motion rigs a lot, but now that he's tried that one he liked, and now he might have to reconsider maybe getting a motion rig for his living room as well. I realize I haven't looked at the chat now while I was talking about motion rigs, and I'm going to read the chat in a second. I'm just going to tell you about one more rig that kind of stood out from all the others, and that was a G-Force simulator. So if you follow Jimmy Broadbent on Instagram, he actually posted a short clip of me in the G-Force simulator. And I'm also gonna, I think it was also, I put it already in the YouTuber's video that is already out, has been out for 6 days or so. I think there's a short clip also of me in that G-Force simulator. So what that does, it's completely different from all the others, because all the others will sort of try to replicate the pose of the car that you're in. So if you go on a curb, it goes like bang, bang, bang. And if you brake, it will go dip in like. I hope you can even see the little movements that I'm making here. As I realize it's gotten completely dark outside, and I still haven't turned the light on, but my screen is big and bright, so hopefully you can see enough. So braking will be like, and rolling or getting on a curb will be like. In the G-Force simulator, you're being thrown around completely, because it tries to simulate the actual G-forces by tilting you big time into whatever direction is necessary. And it's also 50,000 euro simulator. So most of the top ones are like the best, the really big ones. They're around. They start at like 35,000, and many are in the 50,000 euro range, and then they go up to 90,000 euros or something. And that's basically where you'll usually reach the top end of simulators that you can buy. So that one was like 50 or 55,000 euros. I don't know exactly. It was from Norway. Really nice people, really cool. They had me have a go in it even at 9 o'clock in the evening, 3 hours after the expo closed on Friday, I think. And I had a lot of time. Anyway, so consider braking. So you're braking and you have really good brakes. So let's say you're braking at 1G. Then in that moment, you have 1G pulling you towards the front of your car. And of course, you still haven't lost your weight. So you also have 1G pulling you down. And what that thing will do is basically try and tilt you at something like a 45-degree angle, so that you will also feel the same amount of force pulling you forwards from your personal viewing direction, and down at the same with the same force. So using gravity to simulate the forces, the G forces that go sideways and longitudinally to your pose. And it does actually work to some degree. It doesn't, of course, it has the limit of one G of force in total. Gravity just won't do us the favor of getting higher when we need it. So it has that limit, but within that limit, it works pretty well. So it's sort of it's not what I would choose to go fast. If I were doing hot lapping, I wouldn't be using that thing. But just for the experience, it's pretty cool, especially if you go on the Nordschleife, which in reality it's crazy. If you go in a grippy car, it just has, it's, I don't know. crazy G-forces in all direction on the Nordschleife because of the harsh compressions, and then you have the jumps, and so you're lifted out of your seat, you're pushed down into the seat like crazy. If you have a grippy car, then you have the sideways G-forces, which are enormously high. Of course, the rig doesn't get to the same kind of G-forces, because the best it can do realistically is simulate half a G of sideways G-force, and then even in a very grippy road car, you will already reach 1 G of G-forces in the corners sideways. So it doesn't have the same strength, but it goes in the same direction, and it actually does feel a little like having those G-forces work on you. One thing that needs to be said though, it needs to accelerate and move around a whole lot of mass. So there's like the 85 kilos of myself, and then there's like probably at least like another 100 kilos for the whole rig, the seat, the frame, the screen, the steering wheel, the shifter, the paddles, and whatever else is on there. So let's say it's moving around something definitely north of 150 kilos. And while the forces that you experience in the car, if you push hard on the brakes, you will have the brake force set in immediately, right? You'll have the G's to the front immediately, and you will be pushed into your harness or into your seat belt if you don't have a racing harness, immediately in a real car. And that thing, it needs to dip you. It does a good job of dipping you down quickly, but of course there's always that little bit of delay, and that won't go away, and that really won't go away for any of the rigs that move fast, because you just gotta accelerate and decelerate big masses, and for that you need big actuators, and big actuators are expensive, and to make that, I mean, you could probably spend $500,000 on just actuators that are completely oversized that can do it ever so slightly faster. But at some point it stops making sense spending that kind of money. You could argue that point is reached way before 50,000 as well, but still. It's a very nice experience, and it's very different from all the other motion rigs. So that one was kind of standing out just as sort of an effect rig, if you will. It's not something I would use, as I said, to go fast, but it's nice to get that experience, because it's, in one way, it's the closest experience to the real car. In another way, because everything is so delayed, it feels sort of soft. It feels more like you would expect a road car to feel when you're actually driving a race car, because it's not. Also, it didn't have any butt kickers or any other transducers on it, so you wouldn't get like the harsh bangs when you get on when your car is bottoming out, or you get on a curb or whatever. You don't get the bang bang bang. You just get the whoop 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 whoop. Yeah, okay. So that's the thing with that one. It stood out from the crowd, but yeah, it's not what I would use to race. And now I will have a quick look at the chat. Oh, Ricardo. Hello, Ricardo. Okay, let's see. Motion makes me sick, Dave. I was in the back seat of that AMG GT 4-door car, 580 horsepower, for a lap of the Nordschleife with a crazy driver, Thomas of Fanatec, and I did feel it in my stomach. So I was feeling like, yeah, I did get a little sick in the back seat. And the same thing sort of also when later that same evening I went and had that late night session at the G-Force simulator. I had the same issue. I didn't really have it with the other rigs, I think. Everything else was sort of fine in that regard. I mean, I only spent like 5 to 10 minutes on each of them, so yeah. But like after being exposed to like the real G-forces in a back seat while holding your phone, trying to film out of the windshield, that did make me sick to my stomach a little bit. Not so I would throw up, but still wasn't feeling very well. And Mr. Random Call Sign and Mr. Gamer Muscle were waiting just outside as we returned from the Nordschleife. They were waiting outside filming as the rear window rolled down, and apparently my skin color looked a little more pale than usually. But I was told that it's actually the rear seat on a racetrack is not a very good spot to be. And yeah, anyway, so yeah, motion can make you feel a little sick. Personally, I don't have much issues with anything below that experience, so I can go on any boat. I don't mind any type of plane. I don't get sick easily or feeling sick to my stomach easily, but Nordschleife with Thomas. And after that, also the G4 simulator also made me feel just ever so slightly sick. Yeah. But I mean, it's different for everybody, right? So some people go in a VR setup for 10 minutes and they start throwing up, and others put it on for the first time and they can go 3 hours without feeling anything. So it very depends. It differs from person to person. So yeah, some people will have no joy in a motion simulator. But what I do think is that you can probably get adjusted to it. If you expose yourself to it over and over and over, at some point you will stop feeling sick because your body will adjust and you will learn to expect the sort of movements that you're getting from it. And usually I think what makes you feel sick is a mismatch between what you're seeing and what your what's the word for it? Like what your vestibular system feels, for the lack of any more colloquial term. I don't know what it's called. Your G-force meter in your ears, right? If that is off with what you're expecting from a visual perspective, then you feel a little sick. But once you learn to expect a certain movement, I think it will get better over time. Still, if you're getting absolutely sick from it within the first couple of minutes, it's not worth spending 10,000 euros on it, hoping that you will eventually learn to deal with it. If you don't like it in the first place, you're not going to spend 10,000 euros, right? So, okay. And there's always a delay. Yeah, the more movement there is, the larger the delay will be. But it really also depends on the system. The stronger your actuators are, less of a delay you will have, generally speaking. So yeah, so there's way around it. Of course, you never get it 100% perfect, but I think you can get it to a place where it actually enhances your driving experience and also the feedback from the car in such a way that it will make you faster. In the Porsche, I think it did that for me. Then there was maybe one or two other rigs where it helped me a little. Like the Nissan rig, I forgot the name of the things, but it will be in some video that I make. So I forget the name of the company that's actually making the motion simulator, because it wasn't Nissan. They were just at the Nissan store there. And then there was one more rig, which is actually, which was, I think, no, it wasn't SimGear. That was the Norwegian guys. Why does every company have to have their name start with Sim when they're in the sim racing business? It makes them so difficult to tell apart. I don't know, I would have to look it up. Anyway, Sim something. They have like a showroom at Zolder at the racetrack, and that guy, Janos is his name, he also provided Kelvin van der Linde with his simulator, and he had a SimRig setup with a D-box system, a motion setup with a D-box system that was set up fairly well, and where I could imagine also that helping me, because it wasn't overdoing it with all the motion effects. And yeah, as I said, in the end, I think it really depends on how you set it up. And most helpful for my track time, I think, or my lap times, was a rig that moved very little. Even though I have to disagree with Dave here, it's not a torture device necessarily. If you're fine with it. For me, they weren't torture devices. I like them mostly, and they don't necessarily have to cost as much as a real car. I just pitched to SimRig, the Swedish company, today that they should look at making their 4 actuator motion system, producing a solution so that you can mount it just under the seat as it was on the Porsche, because that was genuinely great. And having like a seat mover with very little motion but very precise motion, I think can make a lot of sense. And their system is 2,900 euros. And I think there's also other seat movers at around the 3,000 euro mark. So yeah, it doesn't have to cost as much as a proper real car. Of course, there are good cars for 3,000 euros, yes. But I mean, anything you would want to take to a racetrack probably costs you more. So, okay, so I'm now catching up. Since I'm talking so much right now, I'm still catching up on what was said 5 to 10 minutes ago, where a random call sign is talking about my skin color as I left the lab. I didn't feel at all like fainting, but I did feel a little sick as I sat. So, Mia, have you missed something in the stream or anything? I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that question, to be honest. Okay, an RV3 seat mover, SFX 100. I've read those terms before. I'm not exactly sure because I don't think I've not tested the any real seat mover, and I don't think there were any SFX 100s on display. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I'm not perfectly sure what an SFX 100 is, to be honest. Haven't looked it up, but I've read the name. And also no GS5 on display, unless I overlook anything. So, okay, now I think it's just tech talks among motion rig nerds in the chat now, which I appreciate. Don't let yourself get interrupted by me. I guess, though, we can get back into a car now. Unless you have more questions about the SimRacing Expo, there's a lot more to tell. Maybe one thing that I only said in German at the end of the YouTuber's video, so you people may not have understood it, not all of you anyway. The one thing that was cool about the SimRacing Expo is the hardware, but the other thing is really the people that you meet, and for me in particular, being sort of the newbie in the YouTubers here, like meeting all of these the famous guys, right? Like Random Call Sign, like Gamer Muscle, SimRacing Girl. And it was in part it was sort of humbling. So it turns out SimRacing Girl is a fan of this channel, and she had already subbed to me and liked videos of that I posted before we met on the expo, which was nice to hear. And then yeah, so that was humbling, and also just hanging out with the guys. It was just totally cool. Like I was one thing that was not very great at the SimRacing Expo was the lack of proper food. So there was a Subway outside, and there was like a sausage and fries stand, and that was basically all you could get in terms of food: fries, sausages, and Subways. And I know it's not gonna make me popular, but I don't like Subways very much, and I don't eat sausages a lot either. So I was left with fries mostly. And also on my way back to the Airbnb in which I was staying, that like the gas stations weren't even open, and like when I got back home like 10, so I was really struggling to get enough food, and I was like walking around all day making videos, talking to people, driving simulators, so I was really active physically during all 3 days, had very little food. And on Friday, what saved me was that there was Jimmy Broadbent standing around in the evening somewhere outside in front of the subway with Dom and Atze of Team Redline. And Dom had gotten a bunch of pizzas for the people that he knew there, I guess. Also for Jimmy. And Jimmy gave me like a quarter or a third of his pizza. And that really saved me that evening. And it's just like making those kinds of experience that made it that really got it over the top for me. Getting the Team Redline pizza via Jimmy Broadbent because I was starving, so that was awesome. But also, I mean, just like goofing around with Gamer Muscle, James and Ricardo, random call sign. And I mean, there were a couple of Jimmy, of course, he was around a lot, and then meeting also people that I hadn't known before who turned out to be pretty great people, like Maxime MXM for the Dutch crowd. She's only doing videos in Dutch, but still pretty cool, and also nice to see female sim racers. I mean, Sim Racing Girl more or less stopped once she started working at Fanatec. But it felt like, you know, goofing around on the schoolyard with your friends that you've known for years, sort of. It was really nice and cool, and yeah, completely enjoyable. And I met Aussie Stick. I had no idea who he was prior to the expo, because apparently I'm a dumbass and everybody knew Aussie Stick except me. So I got to know Aussie Stick, and we walked around on Sunday, I think, for an hour or two, just going from stand to stand, and I filmed him in the Porsche simulator, and we worked together at the Nissan thing with a motion simulator, and he's a really cool guy, like a little different from most of the others, like in terms of age apparently, but really chill, really nice, very, very cool to be around. Sub to his channel, recommended all of you also do the same. And yeah, it was just great being integrated in the community. But yeah, so getting back to the chat. Mia, everything I know about Fanatec releasing new stuff is basically in the interview with Thomas. I didn't manage to get any info beyond that out of him. So yeah, just watch the video for Fanatec hardware, but not a lot. No, I didn't. Actually, I would have loved to also take a closer look at the SimLab stand, but there was just so much to do. I was there like I spent every hour, every minute I could on all these things that I did at the expo, like interviewing. I have so many interviews of people making motion rigs mostly. Yeah, well, and I'm gonna put them online at some point in some form, but I still need to make up my mind how I'm gonna do that. So I've done that a lot. Then we've been to the Nordschleife. We have watched the Blancpain races. I've been to the SRO esports launch. I forgot Chris Hay. He and Paul Jeffrey of race department. They were doing sort of their own thing. They weren't at the expo much. um, but also really cool guys, just as you would expect them to be from watching their videos. But they were mostly at the SRO Esport launch, which was in the paddock, so that was separate from the rest. And going there, just like I was busy all the time, and I did not get to check out all the exhibitors that I wanted to check out, including SimLab. I would have loved to ask them about a review GT1 Evo, but didn't manage to get by their stands because I was sort of thinking about making some more motion simulator oriented stuff. And yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, I have no idea how that bucket seat feels. Is the force feedback improved with Fanalab? No. No, it doesn't change anything at this moment, except you have a little bit of additional damping that only kicks in a certain at certain steering angles and above a certain speed, so that you can get rid of high-speed oscillations while driving, and it reduces your, well, maybe it can improve the force feedback a little bit because it reduces your dependence on the natural damper, natural friction setting. So you can reduce those a little by cranking up the other thing, which will only be active basically when you're going fast on a straight, which is when you will want to reduce oscillations. Outside of that, though, it doesn't change anything. There's no magic inside. It's just a more convenient way to set up your wheel and to manage your different setups and profiles. So no. Norman, a more professional version of the McLaren GT3 wheel. If you have a link to the video, could you please post it in the comment section, because I haven't heard of that. I would love to confirm it, but I haven't heard of it. That would be a wheel that I would be interested in myself, to be honest. Thomas did mention that they have, well, at least one product, which I think was a steering wheel in development that will blow us away, which I'm curious about. I'm interested in what it might be. I feel like it might be like a GT3 type steering wheel. But my guess is as good as yours. I literally only know what's in the interview. So yeah. How do you see real-time data on the DD2? You keep the little tuning button on your steering wheel pressed, and then you go left and right on the either with a funky switch or with the D-pad. So on the universal hub, you press it down and then you go right left, and then you have the force feedback analysis screen, then you have the motor data analysis screen, then you have the temperature analysis screen, and there's another hidden screen which you will get to if you push down, and then you get the system info screen, which has some it has info on main, motor, and WQR. I don't know what exactly that is. Something says FWV5 and HWV10, and then it counts the hours, minutes, and seconds how long the steering wheel has been on since it was last powered off. But yeah. Thank you for the compliment, Mia. So, Leonard, the telemetry effects. Yes, they did. Thomas did mention them in the interview. how I understood him was that those are additional effects that you can put on top of the game steering wheel, and also of course you can turn the game force feedback down and then only use those effects, but I don't think they will fully replace the regular steering forces, but they could be like additional effects, like they have in Assetto Corsa, this exaggerated understeer feeling where the steering forces get really light once you're in understeer, right? Something like that I think could be added. So if the game registers, or if the steering wheel registers that you have understeer in game, that it will reduce the forces. Same, maybe something similar for oversteer, I don't know. Maybe something with with shifting, so that you get like a little notch in the wheel when you shift up. Maybe, no idea. I don't think that's coming, but stuff like that. So stuff that is added in terms of force feedback, but not replacing the game force feedback, as far as I understood it. And in a way, we already have one telemetry-based effect in the software now, and that is the speed-dependent damping. So it reads the speed from the game, and will only initiate that effect when you're over the specified speed. So. Okay, well, that will clear those questions, I guess. Let me think if there's anything else SimRacing Expo related that I feel like I need to get off my chest, but I can't think of anything right now. So my suggestion would be, I will have a quick look at now how, so it's always dangerous to put your browser on live stream, right? So since I'm streaming my main screen, let me I don't think there's anything that you shouldn't see, but then again, you never know. So I'm keeping it on my second screen here, which is not streamed, I hope. And I'm gonna look on race department for Assetto Corsa tracks and see if I can find Road America. Search mods, Road America, and then categories, Assetto Corsa tracks, search. Okay, so there's a version 3.6. Does that look any good? Visually, it doesn't look too bad, actually, on the screenshots. Somebody got a little lazy on the fences, but that's something that a lot of people do. Oh, and but I think it's using Kuno's textures. I think I'm recognizing the Kuno's grass and tarmac transition texture, so it's not necessarily something that I applaud personally, but yeah, it still looks good. So ratings, 4.5 stars. Why am I not logged onto race department on this computer? So downloading Road America. You're right, I could actually use incognito mode, but then I can't really log into race department to download stuff in incognito mode, right? Or can I? I'm not sure. Anyway, scrolling through my download folder, also something very... Not everybody wants their download folder streamed on the internet. Where is it? Oh, okay. There we go. Set a course. Okay. So I can show you one thing, I suppose. Show you how to install the track mod. So I downloaded the track, the T21 Road Atlanta.rar, or a zip, I'm not sure. No, it's a RAR. And then I'm just going to the Assetto Corsa in the games, or wherever you have your Steam apps folder. Steam apps come in Assetto Corsa. Then you go, actually let me check out what it has here. Yeah, the way this is set up, it doesn't have any shaders that come with it, so you just go content, tracks, drag and drop, let it do its thing. Ah, apparently I already have something of that name in that folder, probably older version then, so override, and it's done. Now I need to restart Content Manager to what's happening? Not starting. To have it see the track. And it's gone. Why is it not there? Is it there under some other name or something? I feel like it should be somewhere near Road Atlanta, right? It's not. Yeah, great. Failed demonstration of how to install mod tracks for Assetto Corsa. Did I do anything wrong? I mean, I know that this is how it usually works. And this has the right kind of folder structure as all the others have as well. So let me actually just start up the regular Assetto Corsa launcher. Yeah, I might actually go into RF2 and Leonard, when I got back home, RF2 worked right off the bat flawlessly. So, but it's a bitch sometimes. So, I told him when we met that I was having issues with RF2, and it was like I wasn't recognizing my steering wheel, all the pedals, and then, but suddenly when I returned it did. So I could have a shot at Road America in RF2. Anyway, let's have a look if Road America is listed here now. Road Atlanta, no. Why not Road America? Let me actually do one more thing and delete the folder first and then copy it over again. Ship and downloads. Oh, because I was stupid and you guys weren't telling me I was stupid, because I did not actually install Road America. I installed Road Atlanta again because apparently I can't read. So now this should install Road America. Okay. For some reason I have two different Road Atlantas. I'm a little tired, to be honest. So it's showing, and it's completely embarrassing now that I've been talking about Road America while reading Road Atlanta, not noticing anything. Oh yeah, so restarting Content Manager, and once it starts, we should actually be seeing Road America in the track list now. So there we go. Okay. Yeah, so trying a different steering wheel at the expo and hating it, that can very well happen. And I mean, even though I did, at some point, I think I did try a DD2, a DD1, multiple SC2s, so Simicubes, then at least one Simicube 1, and a couple of other steering wheels where I don't know what they were. All of those are like, again, it's like it's similar to the motion rigs, not quite as drastic, but it's still, you're more testing the setup of the wheel than the wheel's hardware capabilities, really. So with RF2, I really like the DD1, and the differences in terms of hardware between the DD1 and the SC2 and so on, they're not gonna be big at all, and I think it's gonna be very hard to tell if you put me into a VR. It's gonna be very hard for me to judge what kind of wheelbase I'm using, I think. I haven't really done that, but if I don't have a chance to set them up and really play around with the settings, I don't think I'll be able to really tell much of a difference between the steering wheels, because yeah, the settings are way more important than the hardware capabilities after some level, right? Let me actually load my SVX setup for this car. Yeah, Leonard, but there's a lot of things to tweak in the wheelbase. So I was not talking about the force feedback settings in the game, but in the wheelbase settings. And both the SE2 and the DD1 and DD2, they all have plenty of things to fine tune. And of course my steering wheel isn't recognized because I'm in PC mode, and I should probably go into compatibility mode. I'm just saying I wouldn't dare making any judgment on any of the direct drive wheelbases just of my Sim Expo experience, because I think the hardware capabilities are very close to one another. It's just the features of both the hardware and software that are going to make the biggest difference. And the software features, of course, also include the setup options that you have. And you have in the SC2, for example, you have the force reduction feature, which you don't have in Fanatec's wheelbases. And that is because of Fanatec's philosophy on like just delivering however it's intended by the game maker, and just to cooperate with the game makers to enable them to provide a good force feedback right out of the game, instead of overlaying it with tons of different effects in order to yeah, to fix what the game makers broke, so to speak. And I think that's a totally reasonable approach. But I think the most difference between the SC2 and the DDs for now is that the SC2 has an inertia setting and that it has a force reduction setting, and maybe the friction setting in the Fanatics is a little better. But I don't know. I haven't really tried an SC2 before. I mean, that's the things that I can think about that could be different. And I just realized I got the wrong steering wheel for this kind of car, so let me quickly swap them. Come on. All right, first this, then this, and then tighten. Okay. Did I not put it on right? Fanalab. Okay, it recognizes the steering wheel. I was having like a weird symbol on the display and not what I was expecting. Fana property page. Oh, but it's registering all the buttons just fine. So it wouldn't the steering wheel didn't react in game. But it seems fine here. So let's go to settings, controls. 5 and 6 are working. Buttons. Okay, this should be fine. Let's try again. Oh yeah, it works. Now I need to set up the car. Should be fine. Force feedback. So 100 maybe a little high. Natural damper 5. Natural friction 20. That should be fine. Go. Yeah, the Arica is a very nice car. It's a mod car, pricey. Yeah, so at this point, there's no use in trying to learn off of my driving this track because I'm not very used to this track. This never-ending right-hander just... It's kind of tricky to figure out. Do the kick at full speed? Yeah. You guys are being silent in the chat. Are you not entertained? And if so, tell me what to do to change it. No, no! You can't. I'm on a 60-inch TV here, so it's a 60 hertz, very quick response time. So no, not every TV has a bad response time, and there's no screen lag or anything. But it only is 60 hertz, but it's really big. And even though everything else is completely dark, it's bright enough so you can see me. From my judging just mostly off of my SimRacing Expo experience, for me currently, if you want to use a screen, the best compromise would be an ultra-wide screen. Triples are fine, and if you can get triple 60-inch monitors and put them at quite a distance from you, and that's perfect. But the convenience of a single screen and the lack of bezels, and just the point that you're gonna be seeing enough on an ultra wide. You don't need more space to the right and left necessarily. Those are just factors that for me make an ultra wide like 49-inch, or like the bigger the better, right? But I think 49-inch is the current ultra wide sweet spot. That would be what I would go for if I were buying a new screen. For some reason, driving on small triples that are really close to me felt so weird. It feels like the FOV is set up right, but to me it still feels like the car is like really small. So yeah. So I prefer larger screens that are a little further away. And the 49-inch ultra wide is, yeah, it's a sweet spot for me. Late again for that turn, but I think I'm still with the I didn't put the right setup on, so let me do that. Yeah, so many people think VR is the best thing ever. I think I tried an Oculus Rift S at the Expo in the SimGear simulator, the GeForce simulator. Gotta say I prefer screens still, just because of the lack of resolution. I like it clear and crisp. So no idea if VR would make me any faster. I think it would do so measurably. I mean, it shouldn't make you a lot faster. Maybe it might make you a little faster. Maybe it might improve your positional awareness with other cars in the race and all that. But personally, I still prefer screen at this point. I'm gonna give VR another generation before I jump in at it. Why am I still driving with that gear indicator in my face? So what resolution is the Oculus Rift S then? Because isn't it like similar to the HP Reverb? Grass. Mia, by the way, about the mounting. I mean, what you're suggesting for your TV is exactly what I'm doing, right? So, I mean, I'm not putting it at a 45 degree angle, but I have like, it's extending from the wall, so it's wall mounted, the TV, even though it's freaking heavy at, I think, 32 kilos, mine here. And it's just extending with like a long arm from the wall. That is very sturdy, and I got it off of Amazon. Some wall mount. I feel like it cost around 50 bucks, euros. It works pretty well. Oh yeah, the height of the wall mount is of course important. What I did, I mean, I had the rig before I had my wall mount, so I was able to figure out at what height I wanted. There was something about it. So anyway, I had to. When I got the wall mount, I had to also extend it down, so I'm not just using the wall mount for the TV, but I also have like extension metal bars that extended like 10 centimeters further down, so that I don't have to look up at the screen so much. But it turns out it's also perfect height to watch a movie. So that's good. Oh, by the way, do you guys have any guys and gals? Sorry, I actually try to not just say guys, because I don't want to feel female viewers to feel excluded in any way. But it's hard to get into your head to say guys and gals or everybody or something like that. When you're just used to saying guys. Anyway. Since it's only 10 o'clock, there's still a couple hours left in the day. The stream won't go on forever. Anybody got good movie suggestions for Netflix later on? Because I feel like I want to watch a movie later. So let me hear what you guys been liking on Netflix lately? Or Amazon Prime, I have that too. I struggle with finding the right braking point for turn 1. Remake of Papillon. What kind of movie is that? Start looking at lap times here. So 2 minutes 2.5. So we can go faster. Actually does sound like a movie that I might like. Anybody in the cast that I might know? Malak. I feel like I've heard the name before. I probably recognize the face when I see it. I haven't seen the Bohemian Rhapsody movie though, so. Let's turn again. Okay, I'm almost out of fuel, so let me quickly get back to the pits. Get straight back out again. Cold tires? Nah. Go, turn. driving. Still haven't figured turn 1 out yet, so it's still couldn't really get that right. Still need to brake later, but then turn in earlier. That was my best turn 1 yet. The same projector. That was fine. Is there something that will give me a delta? Grass on the left-hand side. Braked a little early for this one. Much curve on the inside. Well, let's see if this right-hand ping can go full throttle in this car. With a better line it can. Still need to brake later for that one. So what's so special about that SimLab bucket seat then? I mean, since there's plenty offerings for bucket seats on the market. Come on. So how much is it in the bundle? How much you pay on top the rig if you include the seat? That's about what I paid for my seat as well. So I get like a super duper overdeal since I was able to combine like a 10% discount on Black Friday with a manual mistake of setting the wrong price by a person at the company who's responsible for the online shop where I bought this thing. So ended up paying like, I think, 30 for a 300 € seat. Also, my seat is FIA approved. Very important for your living room. Gotta be safe. Ran out of gas. You don't need an FIA approved seat to get a license. You just need that in your car for safe travels in FIA races. So. Well, so like, okay, so the 3.5 grand for that seat. I'm just making sure you people realize that it's sort of a full motion rig in a seat kind of thing. It's a tricky engineering, so it's more than just a seat. It's a very special seat. Okay, I'm getting really tired and hungry, and I want to watch a movie now. So, any last questions regarding Fanalab, SimRacing Expo, anything else? Otherwise, I think I called it a day. Well, so just Google the GS5. It is a seat that that has multiple actuators, and it will press your body in different regions so that it's supposed to feel like in a motion sim or like in a real car. Yeah, Sim Experience GS5, that's the one. Google it and you'll see. It's more than just a seat. But it's technically a seat. Okay, I feel like I answered all of your questions though. So yeah, to you people in the chat, to everybody out there watching maybe a replay of this, thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Have a wonderful day, have a wonderful night, and see you guys for the next video, the next stream. Monday, 8 p.m. Is the time for my interview with Kelvin van der Linde. And yeah, tune in for that. See you guys around. Have a good one. And goodbye.